Hey everyone, it's Matthew here. Welcome back to another mixing video. Last time, we spent quite a bit of time talking about setting up the mix session. We talked about naming your tracks. We talked about color coding them. We talked about physically laying them out so that they made sense. And I even did a little thing where I started chopping up my tracks in order to lay them out even more precisely. And I just realized I'm recording Audacity here. I don't need to do that. Okay, here we go. Here is the mix session. So here you see I've already sliced up all of my main tracks. And what I got here is all of the solo sections laid out. And again, the reason I did this was so that if I pull up the mixing dock again, each of these tracks has their own fader separate from the rest of that file that the vocalist sent you. And so I can control the volumes independently of each other. It gives me finer control over the volume. So today I want to show you another way you can do this. Now again, the reason we're doing this is to get better control of the dynamics, that is the loudness, so that things are not too soft and not too loud. And there are a couple of ways, your singers can be too loud and too soft. So they can do something like this. Hey, my name is Matthew and how's it going? So they can, in one phrase, they can get really excited for one part and then they can kind of mellow down in another part. And that is something that you fix with a combination of automation, but also compression. And probably compression is the most important thing. That's not what we're doing today. Today, we're talking about a situation where, all right, the vocalist is talking to you, singing to you, la 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 la, and then they go around and they have a sip of coffee, and then they sing the next part, and then all of a sudden, they're, another couple of inches away from the mic. And then the next section, they're back, up close and personal. Okay, so that is a recording issue. Or maybe it could just be that in a different section of the song, they used a different tone or a different style when singing those lines. And so you have pretty big changes in volumes. And those are not well handled, in my opinion, with compression. Those are best handled with automation. And so what is automation? It's basically, imagine you got a little guy in your computer and he is or she is moving the faders up and down in real time automatically for you. Okay. So let's see it. I've gotten started already. Here is Yuri's solos. I'm just gonna expand this out. And so this, this is the lines, and this section here with this line that kind of jigs up and down, that's the automation. I'm going to deactivate it, and you can see what this section here sounds like. So this is one of the uses of automation, right? Because this take it slow. Oops, sorry, I clipped. Slow. The slow is really loud, and the parts before it are very soft. So you can use automation to kind of even out the volumes a little bit. Okay. So now I activate this again and so it's not as drastic. It's like a 3 decibel change. It's not as drastic. I'm still going to have to go in here and fix it with compression and probably more automation down the line, but that's kind of what automation lets you do. Now, let's actually go through an example of that. So here I have Hikari's main lines, and I'm going to play sections of them. And if you want to look at the bottom, the mixing dock, this is the one here. This one right here. I'm waving my mouse at it. And you can see where the volume goes. So here's her first solo.
My heartache spins a dream before me. Hey you saw my dream too. Diving forward, wings sweeping through the night. Fly high towards the future.
Let's take a look at her next solo. This is the chorus.
Inside our teardrop revolution, the river wells, I swear I'll hold
Okay, so that's the difference between 18 to 6, or negative 18 to negative 6 decibels. That's a pretty huge range, right? And compression is not going to fix that. You'll try to fix that with compression. You're going to have your compressor basically going all out, like minus 12 decibels for the entire chorus, and it's just going to sound kind of weird. It won't sound very musical. So in Reaper, automation, you go like this. You click on your track, you right click, and then you want to go to, where am I? Envelope. And at this point, what I'm going to do is, because I haven't done anything with effects yet, I'm going to use the toggle volume pre-effects. And that will create this nice thing here. Just a solid green line. And right now it's at the default level. It's just 0 all the way through. And I know for this track, even if you just look at the waveforms, right? This first solo, kind of small, dinky looking. This chorus is big and loud looking. And then again, this solo, smaller. And then this part here is kind of big. And so what you can do is, if you hold the shift key, click, then you just left click on the line, you can draw little dots. And these are kind of like anchors or keyframes, if you will, if you compare it to an animation analogy. What you can do is, of course, if I were to create a dot here, I can drag this up and down, right? And that's crazy because look, the waveform gets bigger and smaller and bigger and smaller, and it's kind of trippy. That's not what I want to do, of course, so I'm just going to Control Z, undo all of that. This section here, this solo is too soft, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit. 3 decibels. This chorus here is really loud, so I'm going to bring it down a bit. Let's just say 3 decibels. That's probably a bit much, but this is just a start, right? It's a ballpark. This section here, I'll bring it up a bit. This section here, I'll bring it down a bit. And you can see the shape of the waveform changes as you go, right? And so this is part of the leveling process. You're making sure the different sections of the song are relatively level. And that's important because when you go ahead afterwards and you apply your effects to it, you want your effects to be doing kind of a comparable thing across the different sections. And so now, if I take a listen to this section,
my heartache spins a dream before me. Hey, you.
And then the chorus,
Cider teardrop revolution, the river wells, I swear I'll hold.
And then this next solo,
Roll my eyes, I think I'll take a breather.
So the volume is very level. It's even across. And probably it's a bit too loud. So I'm just going to bring everything down by a decibel or so. Why not? This isn't set in stone, right? I can go back and change this afterwards depending on how it sounds. Now this does not change the musicalness of the phrases, right? Because we're jumping between large sections. If you listen within the chorus, for example, you still have sections where it gets louder, sections where it gets softer. So let's take a listen.
Inside our teardrop revolution, the river wells.
So revolution, the revolution. Shun gets softer. So those are the dynamics of the phrasing. That has not been lost because I'm not going in and changing the individual words. I'm just taking the big chunks and making sure they're relatively even. Okay? So that's that. That is the leveling part of it. And just to compare, right? I'm just going to expand this section here. There's the groups. So these are still the main lines. But these are the parts, I've broken them up using the process from the last video so that all the parts where the different soloists are singing the different vocalists are singing main lines, but they're singing together, I've grouped them together. And you can actually see how pretty it looks, and don't laugh. Because like I said, this is not necessary, this is not the only way to do it. Oops. This all could have been done with automation, and that's probably the most computer efficient way to do it. But I like this because it looks nice, it helps me think through it.
A winding teardrop revolution, a single truth you have engraved in my mind. Not stop till tomorrow, this is my time. So fine.
But what this lets me do is, right, I've separated them out Another way to control the volumes without necessarily pulling out automation and drawing these dots in is I can just take these tracks and, if they have a mini fader here, this little rotary knob, I can drag it up and down and I can change the volume. That's just another way to do it. Here, right, see, these are the bracketed lines. So in the script of the song, there are sections that kind of overlap. I've put them in the brackets, so that's why they're called brackets. And you can see that, even though I've separated them out, I've still applied automation to all of them to even it out. Okay. So that's kind of where I'm going to stop today's video. So just to recap, in the first video, we talked about physically organizing your layout, getting everything named, color-coded. In Reaper, you can put them into folders. I cut up the tracks and put them into different sections. In this video, I talked about 2 ways that you can kind of level out the overall volumes of your tracks. If you cut your tracks apart, you can use the fader knob to control them, but you can also use automation to control, within a track, different sections. For example, when the vocalist, let's say in between takes, just recorded it differently, you now have the tools to get them relatively even. So that's that. Until next time, take care. All the best.